Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining City Sikhs live International Women's Day virtual event. City Sikhs is an award-winning progressive UK-based Sikh charity which strives to build a cohesive and inclusive society in which individuality is respected and diversity is celebrated. We thought it would be a really good idea to host an event for International Women's Day and to celebrate positivity and women empowerment. I am now going to run through the agenda for today's event. So we'll start off with what is International Women's Day, examples of great Sikh women and what they represent to us today, guest speakers with an interactive Q&A, and then closing. We would encourage those of you listening to submit any questions you have for our speakers. If you submit these questions via the comments box on the social media platform you are watching on, our facilitators will work to get through as many of them as we can. So let's begin with what is International Women's Day. International Women's Day is a global day celebrating women's achievements to raise awareness about women's equality, uplifting and supporting women all around the world. International Women's Day is one of the most important days of the year. It has occurred for well over a century, with the first gathering held in 1911. Now are some examples of great Sikh women and what they represent to us today. The first woman I would like to speak about is Mata Kivi. Mata Kivi was born in 1506. She was the wife of Guru Angad Dev Ji. Once Guru Angad Dev Ji became the second Guru, Mata Kivi took on an important role in spreading Sikhism to women. She continued Guru Nanak Dev Ji's tradition of giving meals to everyone. The langar was known as Mata Kivi Ji the Langar because of the care and love she put into each of the meals. She was also responsible for the organization of the Seva system in the community. The concept created that nobody has ownership of the food to begin with, thus belonging to everyone. Langar is a practice which promotes the idea of equality. People sit together on the floor as equals with no discrimination of class, race, or income to have a vegetarian meal served by volunteers. Her legacy remains today as gurdwaras across the world serve millions of people on a daily basis. The second female I would like to speak about is Princess Sophia Duleep Singh. Princess Sophia was born in 1876. She was an important suffragette in the British suffragette movement and campaigner for women's rights. The daughter of Maharaja Duleep Singh and granddaughter of Maharaja Ranjit Singh of the Sikh Empire. She was raised in a British household after the death of her father, who passed when she was only 17, taken care by Queen Victoria herself. Princess Sophia joined the Women's Social and Political Union, where she began her work in the suffragette movement, allowing women to vote. She attended meetings and joined in demonstrations, including the famous Black Monday demonstration, where suffragettes clashed with the police and many were injured. Princess Sophia also joined the Women's Tax Resistant League. She refused to pay taxes on the principle that women should not have to pay taxes when they did not have the vote to determine the use of those taxes. This led her into court and having the bailiffs visit her house and taking her belongings many times. These actions created a high-profile stand for the women's movement. She remains an important part of our history as a prominent figure of fighting for the rights of women. I will now pass on to Sharina, who will introduce our guest speakers.
Thank you, Ninda. So now it's time for our guest speakers. We've got three wonderful women who are sharing their evening with us tonight. We've got Shaniece Martin, Sara Khan, and Sahota. So each speaker will be sharing their version of success and how they're challenging the norms while paving their own way, and thus creating generations for inspiring the future generations to come. First up, we have Shaniece Martin, an author and PhD student. So over to you, Shaniece.
So thank you for that introduction, Sharina. But yes, hi everybody, I'm Shaniece, I'm 23, and I am currently a first year PhD student at Coventry University in Indian English Poetry. So before I go into detail on the topic of my PhD and what Indian English poetry is all about, I firstly want to discuss a little bit about how I got here and how I gained an interest for academia and how I got an interest in my PhD. Because I was never really a grade A student, and my journey, like most journeys, has been full of ups and downs to get me to where I am today. So I went ahead, did my GCSEs and did my A levels, and I knew that I wanted to go to university to study English. So I went and looked around universities, as you do, and my top two universities were Keele University and Coventry, Keele being the one that was a bit further away from home. And it felt like the right place for me when I went to visit it. It seemed really great. The course seemed really interesting as well. And I just got that feeling that was right for me to go there. A lot of my friends were going, further away for university. So I thought that's what I had to do also. So I think that's what made Keele so appealing over Coventry. So I went to do that, and I went to Keele. I was there for a few months, and unfortunately it turned out that that wasn't perhaps the right place for me to be in, and living away from home at that point in my life just perhaps wasn't the right thing, and I maybe did follow the crowd a little bit too much. So I then decided to leave Keele and come back home. So it felt a bit strange dropping out of university, I guess, because all of my friends seemed like they were having such a great time at uni, and here I was having just dropped out and coming back home. But I knew that's not where I wanted my university course and my university life to end. So I decided to apply for Coventry University for the following September, because I started to realise that it was my journey and my life, and it didn't matter what other people were doing. It was about what was right for me. So the following September came around, and I went to Coventry University and did their undergraduate programme in English. And that is where my joy and interest in academia and a career in academia really came from. Not only did I meet some really great course mates, but the supervisors and lecturers there really inspired me and really supported me, because I wasn't top of the class. I wasn't, achieving the highest grade there, but they saw something in me and they gave me the confidence that perhaps I needed to realise my own potential and to realise that my hard work and determination can get me just as far. So I really had such a great time at Coventry, and the lecturers there allowed me to understand how to get into a career in academia and into lecturing. So they told me that I needed to go out and get a master's and get a PhD. So that's exactly what I tried to do. So I went to the University of Leicester to do their master's programme in modern literature and creative writing. And although it was great to go to a different university and experience the different life and the different lecturers, it just didn't have anything on Coventry University for me, because the supervisors there were just second to none. And I thought, my PhD is going to be 3 to 4 years. I really need to pick the right people to support me. So that's when I decided to make the opportunity that I could do a PhD in Indian English poetry, because it wasn't just out there for me to get and apply to online. I had to create that opportunity. And although it was nerve-wracking to begin with to say, hey, I really want to do a PhD in this, will you accept me? It felt really rewarding when, they were listening to my ideas and really believing in me and wanting to take me on. So that's how I got to doing my PhD currently. But let me tell you a little bit about my topic of Indian English poetry, because a lot of you will probably be thinking, what on earth is that? So Indian English poetry is a very niche area. And to put it simply, it's a poet, should I say, of Indian heritage writing in the English language, whether that be in India or outside of India. So amongst that research area, what I'll be looking at is from when Indian English poetry sort of evolved, which was when the 1857 Indian Rebellion happened in India, which was a time when the Indians decided to start rebelling against the rule of the British Empire. And I'm going to be looking at how that's changed right up until the modern day, where a lot of Indian English poets are using the platforms such as Instagram to really express their words and speak up about their experiences of coming from the Indian heritage. Along with that, I'll be researching the differences between male and female Indian English poets, and also how the use of English language and the identity that that carries changed from being seen as the language of the colonizer to now being seen as a respectable language worldwide. So that sort of represents 50% of my PhD, which is research-based, but the other 50% will be a creative side. So the creative side of my PhD will be poetry. So the poetry element will be me sort of writing Indian English poetry as somebody of Indian heritage, writing in the English language about my experiences of being someone who is British Asian and sort of grown up here, and my experiences of that, and also my family's experiences of that. So that leads me on to talking about my poetry itself. So I've been writing poetry for 7 years now, and I've been performing it as spoken word for 3 years. And I've even had the chance to perform with Rupi Kaur in London in 2019 to over 1,000 people. So for those of you who don't know who Rupi Kaur is, she's an Indian Canadian poet and a really keen activist within the Sikh community. So I started writing poetry as a form of therapy, really, because when I was 17, I lost a really close friend, and I wasn't sure how to deal with this overwhelming sense of emotion and something I'd never experienced before. So I turned to writing. So writing poetry for me is very cathartic. I've adapted to writing about a number of topics, but really emotion is always at the heart of it, and that's what I enjoy writing about the most. So in my poetry career so far, I've self-published 2 of my own poetry books, which are available on Amazon. And the latest collection I self-published is called Journeying Through Grief. And it's a collection of poems that are produced in chronological order that discuss the passing of my granddad, who unfortunately passed away in 2019. So I wanted to bring out the collection on his anniversary, which was last May in 2020. And although the pandemic came along, I didn't let that stop me, but instead I let it inspire me. It encouraged me to want to share my experiences of grief even more when people were losing loved ones in such unexpected ways at such an unexpected time. And I decided to contribute all the profits that I made from the book sales to the NHS, because it felt like the perfectly right thing to do to support the people that were supporting us and our families. So I'm going to finish my little talk that with a poem that I've written as part of my PhD. And it's about being a woman who is a part of 2 cultures, as I am from a mixed heritage background. So I feel as though when I was younger, I was navigating my identity, not only as a woman, but a woman of 2 cultures and a woman of colour. And it's only been in the last few years where I have felt like I've truly embraced the woman I am and the identity I have, and sort of the beauty of belonging to those 2 cultures, because I do now feel like I'm the bridge between the 2 and bringing them together. So this is my poem, Brown Girl. Brown girl, you are beautiful. And just because your skin isn't like your friends, it doesn't mean that it is bad or wrong. Brown girl, you are a flower that has been birthed from the colonial soil of India and the British culture you are now continuing to grow from. Brown girl, you are a legacy of the past, present and future. The past of the ancestors who came before you, the present of combining 2 cultures together, and the future of all that come after you. So thank you for that, and thank you for listening. I just want to say it is a pleasure to speak on this event for International Women's Week, and I want to say a big thanks to City Sikhs for inviting me to talk on this panel. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Shaniece. That was a really honest account, I think, of your recent experiences, and I'm sure there's many people like listening now who can really relate to what you're saying, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to Sara Khan. So Sara Khan is with us today, and she is a marketing practitioner, and I'm going to lead marketing practitioner, I should say. So I'm going to hand over to Sara now.
Perfect. I thought I was going to stay on off mic there. Hello, everyone. I don't know how to follow up with that, actually. Maybe a singing, dancing sort of thing. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for everyone who's joined us. I just wanted to say that it's an amazing opportunity to meet amazing women that are doing something amazing for International Women's Day. And, you know, you're going to find so many stories of sheer determination, like Shaniece's story. Everyone's got a different path. And my different path, even though there's very much overlapping with Shaniece's, my path was the businesswoman side of things. So I'm an award-winning business mentor and social media trainer. Essentially, I've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, training them on using literally social media, basically getting their products sold. And one of the things that I've learned on my journey is, if it wasn't for Shaniece's sort of determination for us females to have that and be like, we need to keep going, we wouldn't be where we are today. So we have to bear in mind that one of the most important things you can do for yourself is put yourself in a position of winning. So you might say, tell me more about yourself, Sara. So my story is slightly, I'm gonna share the honest side, the side of things that people don't share with you as a businesswoman or as an entrepreneur. So you'll read books and people will give you all the bright, nice side. We're millionaires, it's amazing. It's not. You go through depression, you go through anxiety. I was also not a first class or a top grade student at school. But I remember my dad used to say to me, you need to go to school, you need to get your grades, and you are not going to end up like me, waitressing or doing all sorts. I don't know why I've given him that Asian accent. He doesn't actually sound like that. But that was, I'm sure most of you could resonate with that, because fathers and mothers don't want to go through they don't want us to go through what they did, right? So I went to university, I did my studies, and one day my brother said to me, Sara, I think you need to do digital marketing. You'll love it. Essentially making other people look good, right? So sell people's products, but make them look good online. And I thought, you know what? Why not see what it's all about? And he was right. Even just taking a male and a female perspective, speaking to different people, I sort of found my path. I thought I knew best, and probably don't, because there's so many people around us that know things. And my point is, we should be open to learning things and exploring. And if you don't have any answers right now of what path you want to go down, it doesn't matter what age you are, you can always change your life at any point. It's just having these sorts of events and conversations that help. So let me wind it back. So went to university, amazing, great, I enjoyed it, and then went into place of work. I was workplace bullied. So I didn't know this at the time, but my anxiety was super high, and I was bullied by my manager, and I didn't realize it. And I never shared that story because I'm afraid that people are going to say, well, maybe you're the problem, Sara. And that's how I felt for many years. Maybe, Sara, you are the problem. And most of us females feel that way. We see men succeeding and we think there's something wrong with us. But then I thought, I'm not going to let this female boss bring me down. We need to come together. Like, if she's not going to come with me, I'm going to show her. So my feistiness came in handy, right? And I think we need to sort of have some of that sort of determination and feistiness. Anyway, so years of working hard and learning, making sure that I was the best at what I did. I wasn't giving up. I kept going. I learned every evening. I would sit there, what course am I going to do? And eventually in that job role, it was amazing, but I ended up training global team managers, global teams around the world that I wasn't doing before. So my point of sharing that sort of story at the beginning is, sometimes out of pain and suffering, there can be something beautiful. I believe in God. God is trying to show us something, but we don't realize it. Or God's, whichever religion or whatever faith you are, doesn't matter, but someone's trying to show us something and we don't realize it. So anyway, where am I today? All of that heartache and pain has led me to where I am today. And I trained some of the biggest companies in the world. You name it, I've been training their employees. And you might say, oh, she comes across quite confident. That's not me. I wasn't very confident, but I worked on myself. And I realized personal development and competence, all of those things will lead me to confidence. If I know what I'm doing, then I'm going to feel good about what I'm doing and the path that I'm on. It's not all good for us to just make sure that we put loads of makeup on or not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's the sort of environment I was around. The lady was only hired because she looked great. I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be the person that people hired, not because it's a quota and she's a female. It wanted to be, she's really good at her job and she is amazing and we need to take her on. And that's what I want to show everyone else. I want to empower you. I want to inspire you. And I want to show you there is a different way. What we see right now, we don't see enough South Asians. I was literally the only South Asian in most of my workplaces. And at the same time, I would say 80% of the time, I was actually the only female. And guess what? When I'm there with guys, whether it's, really high board members, I don't look at them like that. They're people behind a suit, right? And I know I've learned a lot over my years. So I don't see it as ranking. Yes, I need to respect them as well as we need to respect ourselves. And we need to realize that we've got something amazing within us. We're here on this earth for a bigger purpose. And that's another thing. Another top tip is purpose. You need to know your purpose. And if you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. You will get to it. You might ask me what my purpose is. My purpose is to make a difference in people's lives, make the world a fairer place. It doesn't matter what religion, culture I am. I want to be good and I want to be helping anyone, any people that need help, underprivileged people. I came from an underprivileged background. My parents didn't have a lot of money. So it's about not having a lot, working hard, but also giving back. We have to give back. And there's so many things that we can do for ourselves. And I say determination, purpose, not giving up, realizing that there's something beautiful about you and evolving as a person in life. Don't stay stagnant. Move forward and keep going, because there is something beautiful out of any pain and suffering that you could be going through. Even now in COVID, we're all suffering right now. I'm going through mental health issues and I'm going to be vulnerable and share that, because once we open up the conversation, someone else is going to say, I'm going through that as well. And we can have these conversations and make people better, and at the same time make the world a better place. Because let's be real, we may not be here tomorrow. What can we do to make this world a fairer place for the next generation, for our kids, for our parents, for anyone around us? So I just want to say thank you so much for listening and being a part of this conversation. And let's do something tomorrow in the week ahead that can make a difference. And you might be going through a tough time right now. Go for a walk. Go and look after yourself. Self-care. Get back to the person you are. Because I was lost for many years. And one thing that's helped me during this, tough times is realizing what I'm actually here for on this earth. Coming back to that and looking after myself so that I can help amazing people like yourself. So I hope that's helped. And remember, whatever you're going through, there can be something amazing. And if I can do it, you can do it. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great. I just want to say, firstly, big up to your brother for setting you on your path, which is clearly the right thing for you to do. And secondly, thank you for, again, your really honest and candid view of your experiences. Some really great top tips there, so thank you. Okay, and then you're welcome. Finally, we've got Harj Sahota. So Harj is a political advisor, and I will hand over to her now. Over to you, Harj.
Thanks, Sharina, and thanks to Shaniece and Sara. You both a hard act to follow, but actually you've helped me a lot in what I want to say. I'm going to go completely off piece actually, and be honest. And I think that's the way to go. And normally I do that anyway, but I think I'm going to go even further today. So let's get into it. So. I am a political advisor. I work in the leader of the Labour Party's office currently, and I've been working in politics for the last 5 years through various roles in local government. I worked for the Mayor of London, and I've worked on quite a few different election campaigns for the London mayorals, and some kind of other comm stuff in between. I know a lot of this is around your version of success, and I think I just want to touch on something that Shaniece said. And looking at where I am now, I think when I meet people, it's very easy for people to assume that you've done so well, that's it, you're the finished product, and they just take you as you are now, which is obviously, you know, unless you tell them otherwise, why would they dig any deeper? But actually, you know, I always loved school. I'm Birmingham born and bred, and I went to Manchester University for law and politics, and I loved my time there. And actually doing the combined course, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, classic Indian, but I actually really enjoyed the political side. So I'm really pleased that I did that, because I definitely wouldn't be doing what I was doing today otherwise. But taking it back to sixth form and A-levels, I actually, even more classic Indian, thought I wanted to be a doctor. And in my first year, I chose chemistry and biology. And that step from, and I still remember it now, GCSE to A-level is huge. And just because I did well in my GCSEs, I was not ready for science A-levels. And I actually failed both of my science A-levels, and I could not believe it, because I had never failed anything before academically. So it was a big punch in the gut, and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And I'd always been really interested in, without realizing, politics, but I loved essay-based subjects, history, English, and kind of took a step back, had another look, and I ended up choosing politics as one of my A-level choices. And that's kind of, that decision there has led me to where I am today. I went back a year, and I had the year that I was in the year above me, going through, applying for university, getting their places, then going off to uni. And that was really hard. And as a teenager, everything is, you know, feels way more exaggerated than it is anyway. But it kind of felt to me my first test, you know, of character and resilience, and how to kind of just still go into sixth form every day, see those friends, and keep your head high and not feel like a failure, but just work really hard, which is what I did. I put my head down and loved politics, and I was really good at it. And you know, now I'm a political advisor, but without missing out too many steps, and touching on what Sara has said, my first job in London. So I always wanted to move to London, much to my parents' dismay at the time. And it wasn't a very well paid job, and it was entry level in the civil service in the Ministry of Justice. And as a civil servant, you need to be impartial. And I realised very quickly that I was very political, and that it wasn't so easy for me to just be impartial and do that role. And so I thought, how do I get into politics? And I'm sure there's many people who are wondering, how on earth do you become a political advisor? Honestly, there is no clear path, and nobody, unless you have those networks, will help you. And I've struggled my way through. I've had a checkered history of different jobs in different fields, policy, comms, events. I'm now in visits and events, and they're all, you know, one in the same. And actually, all those different roles have helped me for the role that I'm in today. But I really did lack that guidance. I didn't have networks. You know, there was no one in my family that, you know, had any political links or anything like that. It was totally different field to go into. And so I was very much on my own. And like many industries, but being a woman of colour is difficult. Being a young woman of colour going into politics is not great. And if I had known at the time how difficult it was going to be, it might have put me off. I'm really glad that I stuck it out. I've also been very fortunate, as I've kind of muddled my way through, that I've picked up some amazing women mentors along the way. And that's something that I feel incredibly passionate about. And that's why I said yes immediately to Sharina about this event, because it's important to, you know, be able to see that there are other women that are doing these roles that are out there, and also being honest that it's not easy. And it's an open invitation. I am a City Sikhs ambassador. So if there is, you know, anyone who is interested in that area, please do get in touch with me through City Sikhs. I'd be more than happy to help. There's no harm in helping people. And that's one of the things that I found quite cutthroat, that giving somebody advice isn't going to, you know, do you harm. And there's a lot of gatekeepers. And I absolutely want to kind of smash those doors down, and to have more Harjeets and Shanices and Saras, you know, joining me and being alongside me, because it's lonely otherwise. And it's much better when there's more of us doing, you know, in these different industries and smashing those ceilings. And the more of us that are in it, the louder we can be. And that's, you know, strength in numbers is a big thing. In terms of my role and what I do, I feel like I've already talked for ages. So Sharina, tell me when I'm running out of time. But one of the reasons that I have always, that I've ended up in politics, and I think I've had that determination to get through to be quite frank, crap times to get here, is I have have always had a very strong sense of justice and from my faith, equality, and Sikhi teaches equality and charity and serving humankind. And I feel like for me, I found my purpose, and this is the best way that I can do that, and in the most direct and impactful way. And I feel very fortunate because I feel like I finally got to a position where I can start making that difference. And it's the other jobs that I've done along the way. Everything, I strongly believe, as Sara said earlier, like everything kind of happens for a reason. And at the time it might not be clear, but actually looking back, I wouldn't change anything, even the really hard times, because it makes this so much better. And those lessons that I learned along the way, stick with you, and they make you wiser going forward. So on to the equality stuff. I mean, it's International Women's Day. Happy belated International Women's Day and Women's Week. It would be, remiss for me not to talk about women's safety, particularly what's been going on in the news this week. And I think every woman I know has an incredibly heavy heart with the news around Sarah Everard. And the work that I've done previously in City Hall around women's safety at night, it's just really hit home that, there is only so much that can be done through policy, through political will. Ultimately, we need allies. We need men to take notice. We need them to change and call out these different behaviours. And I think from my experience personally through family and culture, although Sikhi preaches equality, and that is true, and it does, culturally, that we have a big problem with misogyny, and we need to look closer to home, and everybody needs to start calling it out where possible. And men, don't be offended, look at yourself and do something about it, because it can't just be, if it was my sister, if it was my daughter, oh, I've got a wife. We're all equal, everyone's a human, and that should just not be the argument or even come into it. And once we change that mindset, I just think we're going to go leaps and bounds to improve things for everyone. And she was just trying to get home. She's just trying to get home, and it just blows my mind how men don't ever think about that in the way that we do. And I think that's why it's really hit home. So women's safety is one of the biggest things. I could go on forever about all the other things, but I'm going to stop there so that we can get into the Q&A. But I just really want to reiterate that networks are incredibly important. Sarah, what you mentioned around female boss, actually some of the worst experiences that I've had at work have been through women not being very nice. And it's very easy to be like, men are the problem. Actually, I've had some women who've been really awful, really, really awful. And, that's a thing for another time. But I think I would really strongly recommend networks, looking out for each other, and the sisterhood is important, but also culturally looking a bit closer to home. And don't give up, because I think once you know what your purpose is, you get through the rubbish, it's worth it in the end. And I want to see more of us sisters smashing those ceilings, basically. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Harj. Thank you so much. I think, just like you said, echoing Shanice's and Sarah's comments before, but also being really extremely honest about your path to where you are now. And thank you as well, especially for sharing your experiences on the very relevant topic of, women and our safety. I think it's something that's probably on a lot of people's mind at the moment as well. So thank you for that. It's really interesting. I feel like 10 minutes isn't enough to speak to you guys, but we're going to move on now to the Q&A session. So we've had some comments coming in, and just to let you know as well, depending on however you're watching this live broadcast at the moment, you are able to type in any questions via the comments box, depending on what you're using. I'm just going to go straight in with a question to all of you guys. And it is, what does International Women's Day mean to you? So I don't know who wants to go first, but what does International Women's Day mean for you? I'll go to you, Shaniece.
I think for me, it's really looking at how far women have come. I think it is really easy to think, obviously, we have a long way to go to reach the full equality that we want and we deserve. You know, it's not a want, it's we deserve it. But I think it is looking and remembering how far we have come, because, you know, the things and the opportunities that we have today, you know, my mum and my grandma, they're the women that I look to. They didn't have those opportunities. Their life was completely different. And I use International Women's Day as a way to really, really think about that, and also to think about, you know, sort of what difference I can make, you know, in that change of where we can go. So that's what I think about, is the women in my life who inspire me, but also how far we've come along as women.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Sarah, how about you? Oh, Sarah, can you hear me? I was going to say, how about yourself? Oh, I don't know if Sarah can hear me. Harj, I'll go to you then, and your thoughts on what International Women's Day means to you.
So what does International Women's Day mean to me? I'd say, adding to what Shaniece has said, but on top of that, I think we need to not forget that I don't want to say it, but let's just say it. So not turning it into a feminist movement, which I'm sure none of you guys are. I'm just saying this out aloud because there are some amazing men out there who genuinely care about us women, like my father, my brother, my husband, like they care about women. And we forget to see those men as well. So actually celebrating those amazing men behind those amazing women, that is, adding to Shaniece's, that is what International Women's Day means to me, coming together to empowering people as a whole and creating something beautiful for the next generations.
Yeah, that I echo that as well. I think it's been interesting with International Women's Day. It is obviously the focus is on women, but you're right, you know, it's men and women. We can all make a difference with our approaches and attitudes to things. So yeah, that's a great point. Harj, how about yourself?
I think it's really funny what Sarah just said, actually, because literally before I came on here, I said to my fiance, I was like, oh, I guess, you know, they say behind every great man is a great woman. I was like, I guess you're the great man behind me, kind of thing. And it's true, you know, he really does support, and it makes a big difference having that support. So you're totally right, you know, where men are good allies, they should be celebrated. And if you don't talk about them, other men won't know how they can be, and you know, kind of challenge those stereotypes in that way. International Women's Day, to me, totally agree, Shaniece. It's about seeing how far we've come. And I never in a million years would have thought that I'd be like speaking at an event like this. If you told me when I was younger, it just would have seemed so far-fetched. And even going to university at one point was like a big deal, and moving out for university. So it's a time of reflection, I think, for me personally anyway, to see how far I've come, to see how my sister's doing, my mum's doing, and then just obviously everything through politics as well. We've come leaps and bounds, but we have still got so far to go, and it just re-energizes me, I think, to like, you know, that renewal that we've got to keep going, and what's the next priority for the next year, and looking at it that way.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I've got a question for Shaniece. So the question is, how has your heritage influenced your path with poetry and your PhD?
Massively. I mean, my topic sort of says it all. Well, it's Indian English poetry. It's literally combining my two cultures and heritages together, really. I remember with my grandparents, you know, especially my granddad, used to sit there and say, tell me everything about your childhood. What was it like? Because he grew up in Kenya. What was it like in Kenya? You know, tell me all your stories. And I remember I used to sit there, and then I'd like go home and like write down everything he just told me. And I use a lot of what he told me, what my grandma's told me about her, you know, growing up and heritage in my poetry. You know, a lot of my more recent poetry, because I feel comfortable talking about my heritage and my identity now, is about, you know, the women in my life, the men in my life, and how those people in my family have really allowed me to grow in my heritage and really, really believe in who I am, and feel like it's okay, you know, it's fine to be proud of who you are and where you come from. And I think in my PhD, and my topic sort of says it all, but I think having an Indian heritage, it's really just allowed me to excel and really just broaden my horizons. You know, if I wasn't from an Indian background, maybe Indian English poetry wouldn't be as interesting to me, because I'd never have thought about it. But because I am, it did really make me want to combine, you know, the culture that I'm from and my love for poetry together. So yeah, that's how it's influenced probably both of those.
Brilliant. Okay, next one to you, Sarah. It's about women in leadership, and do we need more women in leadership? And if so, why? I think there's a little bit of a lag, so I think you are going to answer just in a minute.
So it was the question, do we need more women in leadership? Yeah, so yes, of course we do. Put it this way, if we had more women, amazing women like Harjeet in our, you know, politics, and we had a more balanced, you know, House of Commons, what legislations do you think would get through, you know, that aren't getting through right now? So there's amazing things that, yes, that, you know, even in whether it's leadership, whether it's politics, whether it's education, whether it's even just corporate, you know, like big organizations, if we had more female board members and we had more female managerial higher level, it's a bit like females, we nurture, we love looking after people. Obviously, you know, I'm stereotyping women here, but science shows this as well. We nurture. So if we have more women in leadership and positions where of power, and I mean it in a positive sense of power, then we would be able to do much more amazing things that just aren't happening right now. So hopefully we will, and it is going to happen. It's just taking us a bit of time, but we've got amazing women like us and amazing men that are listening right now that are going to make it happen. So we're not giving up.
Definitely not. Okay, and hard one for you. During your career, what would you say has been your biggest challenge? I know you touched on some things during your talk there, but we've had that question about your biggest challenge.
That's a good one. It's been quite a few, but I think the biggest one, if I'm being completely honest, is coming into politics as a, you know, working class woman of colour with no links and networks, because best believe there's a reason there's not loads of us there, because the status quo suits people, and it's only when you're in there that you realise actually it needs, you need to be in there to change it. And you know, I remember my first political job, there were a few, you know, there was a loads of like acronyms and things I didn't understand, and I was genuinely laughed at in the office, like men laughing at me that I didn't know really simple things about politics. And it was really cruel actually, and it made me think, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, and who do I think I am thinking that I can waltz in here? And actually it did the opposite. You know, it was upsetting, but it did the opposite, and it spurred me on, because I just thought, you know, you are not better than me. And I've had so many people in my life tell me that I can and can't do things. My parents can testify that. My mum, bless her, like, she's probably got loads of grey hairs because of all the time she told me not to do something and I did it anyway. And I just thought, I'm not going to let, you know, these white men tell me that I can't do this. And that, and overcoming that and remembering that is the thing that kind of drives me through. But it was very difficult, and actually every now and then it still rears its ugly head, but I'm wiser and smarter now, and I'm
Oh, I've lost Hard there. Okay, I'm going to move on. I think we've just lost Hard just a little bit, just at the end, but I think we got the answer to the question there. Again, very real account of things. I'm going to go back to you, Shaniece. Another question for you, and it's about your poetry. So the question is, what made you take the plunge to self-publish your poetry book? Because that's massive. How did you do that?
It was such a big decision, and I think it's because I just thought, if I don't take the plunge, then no one's going to do it for me. You know, I know, like, you know, I think when I was younger and I first started writing poetry, I never thought I was going to show it to anybody. And then I kept seeing other poets post it on Instagram and I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go and post it on there, you know, share it. Because I think for me, I write poetry because, well, I started writing it because I was really bad at talking about my feelings. You know, I didn't just feel like I could just open up and speak to somebody because I was trying to comprehend and understand things myself. So I then started to think about my poetry as pieces of advice. So if they could help people in any way, I thought, I want to put this out there. And I think my first poetry book is that. It's literally every emotion under the sun that I'd felt in that moment in a book. And I thought the only way that I'm going to get it to as many people as possible is to put it in that book. And, you know, I sold it for free on Amazon for a long period of time because I just wanted it to be free for anybody to get a hold of, really. And similar to obviously my second collection, which is all about grief, I remember when I was going through the grief, I kept searching on the internet for ways to deal with it, if what I was feeling was normal. You know, it's such a hard thing to comprehend big things in your life that you've never been through before. And I just thought, I need to get this into the world. I need to let people know that what they're feeling is okay. And if they're ever feeling like I was, where are the answers? Well, here's something that could help you get there. So I started to see my poetry as a way to help people, and that's what really pushed me to self-publish, because I thought I want to inspire and help as many people as I can.
Wow, okay. That leads me on really nicely to Sarah's next question, and the focus on marketing and marketing yourself. So how do you share the importance of that to, you know, your clients and, you know, maybe people like Shaniece? I'm sure there's people who maybe want to do something similar. So yeah, how important is it, and how do you go about it?
You just have to repeat that. I'm so sorry. Literally, my dad called me and the voice went low. Like the worst time for your dad to call you. So my apologies.
No problem.
If you repeat that, I'd really appreciate
Modern
it.
day technology issues. So the question was, so leading off from Shaniece's question actually as well, so how important is it to market yourself and what you do?
Super important. It's like personal branding. You are your brand, right? And you might see as in, but that's just me working, like, you know, that's a different thing. But if you really think about it, sometimes we do become our work. And if we don't show people our skills and who we are as a character and personality, you can transform that into a brand. Like people looking for jobs, it actually helps, because then people know who you are, whether it's LinkedIn, whether you're putting yourself on Instagram to find a job, wherever it is. It brings that sort of human element to you. And when you're looking for whether it's a job or a business or an opportunity, you won't believe it, but most organizations do actually check you out online, and they want to be sure who they're employing are, you know, great people, in other words. So it is really important in this day and age, because there's so much noise out there. We need to stand out from the crowd, and we need to show ourselves for who we truly are, because every one of us is unique. Every one of us has something important and something unique that is important within that job, is what I'm trying to.
Okay, more technical problems. We've lost Sarah. I'm sure she'll be back soon. I'll move on then to the next question, Harj. So this is a question about the last year and the fact that it's been a year since the first lockdown. How have you looked after yourself during that period of time?
Sarah's back. Shall we let Sarah finish first and then I'll...
Good idea. Sorry, we lost you.
Don't worry, I think I said what I needed. I want to hear your tips. I want to hear the tips.
The tip. I won't lie. I mean, firstly, it's mad that it's been a year. It's unbelievable at the same time, because it's just, you know, it has dragged on forever. But equally, if we'd known at the start that it was going to be a whole year and we're still living through this, I imagine we would have been incredibly overwhelmed. In terms of self-care tips and things, I mean, the working from home element has been mad to adjust to. You know, is not something that any of us were expecting, and I realised kind of the hard way through the first lockdown, really, that I was working more than ever. I wasn't doing anything nice for myself. I wasn't like moving away from my desk. I wasn't eating properly even, you know, like not even leaving the house, and didn't really see that as an issue. Like, you know, I did leave the house, but not every day. And it was only after that first lockdown that I realised that like it helps so much leaving the house every day, even if you're not going for a huge walk, because the weather has been grim. Like I mean, today was so gross, and I got caught in hail. Why did I get caught in hail today? What is that about? But like after Christmas, it was just grim, wasn't it? And like going outside was, you know, not what anyone's first choice of things to do. But actually, by not going out, I realised quite quickly I was getting agitated. I was getting more stressed. I wasn't very nice to be around. And you're not working better if you're just sat at your desk all day. So my kind of top tip, which I'm sure everyone knows now, and they've probably been doing for much longer than I have, is to leave the house once a day, every day, whether it's a walk or just literally just standing outside for a little bit. Doing phone calls and walking is a nice one that I've discovered in lockdown 3.0. Walk and talks, they're nice. And just, yeah, taking a break from social media has been the other thing. So inadvertently, by being at home all the time, I was on my phone a lot, I was on my Twitter a lot, and just not letting myself have any time to switch off at all. So that's been another thing that I've done, cutting down my social media intake, because it can be quite toxic as well, as we all know. And at the start of the pandemic, you know, everything is COVID, and it was making me really anxious and stressed. So those are my two top tips. Leave the house. And then the third one is put your jewelry on. I mean, that's just for me personally, but like even if I've got my pajamas going on in the bottom half, having my hoops in, I feel like ready to go, and it just makes me feel better. So I don't know how applicable that is to everyone, but you know, yeah, exactly, got to get the hoops in.
Brilliant. I won't ask who's wearing pajama bottoms right now, but I'm part of the jogger crew right now. Okay, so next question. This is one for you, Sara. And it's a question about faith and the role that faith has played for you during your career.
Massive. You might lose faith along the way, but it comes back in the strangest times. I've realized every time something's gone wrong in my life or going wrong, someone or something comes along my path to remind me, and I see it like a sign. So I'd say faith plays a massive part. It keeps me patient. It keeps me determined. I feel as if there's, like I said, the purpose element. It comes back to that. Whatever faith you have, whatever religion you are, faith is something that will keep you going in times of darkness. And when you're happy, even when I'm happy, I'm like, thank you so much, because we forget. We forget sometimes, but when we remember, there's something beautiful about it. Excuse me. But yeah, faith has been, I'd say, one of the main pillars of one of my self-care as well. So yeah, I think it's been very important. And in my career, if I didn't have my faith, I've lost it along the way, but I've always come back to it. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would be where I am today.
Perfect, thank you. One for Harj. So a question about being in maybe a male-dominated environment. So have you ever felt you've been in a male-dominated environment? Again, I think the answer might be yes. But how have you dealt with it over the years?
Yeah, it's very male-dominated. Picking up allies and sisters along the way has definitely been it. And like they might not be in the room with you, but knowing that you can kind of either WhatsApp them while the meeting's happening, or afterwards at the end of the day give them a call, and maybe like even have a cry, knowing that you've got somebody that you can lean on and just be like, this happened today, and you were outnumbered, and that's why, you know, you were made to feel the way you were, because it can be really little things, can't it, that your voice is not being heard. I'm happy that that happens less and less, but when you're very junior, it's really, really difficult and it can be really demoralizing. But having friends and a good support network is the way through that you can literally just be like, no holds barred, this is what went down, here's the tea, and then they will back your case, and that's it. Just, you know, just have a good session to gossip or cuss people out, basically. So yeah, that's the one.
I like that. Again, very real, and I think something that everyone can probably agree with, just venting. Okay, one for you, Shaniece. What would you say to people who aren't sure what their purpose might be right now, and who maybe aren't sure about what they want to be doing with their time, whether it's career or just in general?
I think it's just knowing that, and this is going to sound really cliche, but knowing that the right thing will come along. So I think, you know, even people who seem like they know exactly what they want, exactly where they're going, they don't have all the answers. So it's okay to not have the answers. You know, even though I'm in a PhD now and I know what job I want to do in the long run, it doesn't mean I have all the answers for in between. You know, I find myself feeling really overwhelmed starting a PhD. I don't know anyone in my family or friends who's doing one, and starting it in COVID is such an isolating thing. You know, it can be really hard. You know, I hear about other people's PhDs and they sound really, you know, sciencey, and I'm thinking, mine sounds a bit useless now, but it's not. And I think, you know, it's remembering that, you know, you might not have the answers now, but you will. And every opportunity that comes your way, just take it and grow from it. Let it help you to grow, whether it be good or bad, because the bad ones you grow from and the good ones lift you up. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, good advice there. Thank you. I've got one more question, and it's going to be another one for all of you guys. So, and I guess, so celebrating International Women's Day, who would you say, if it is even just one person, but who's the most inspirational woman to you and why? Sara, I'll go to you.
Ooh, this is the second time I've been asked this, and I'm like, but there's so many people. It's like amazing women like yourself. I'd say people are inspirational. People's stories are inspirational. I wouldn't say there's one person, because there's this cliche of everyone saying, oh, well, I can think of one person. It could be religion, it could be business, it could be something. I would say it's normal people doing extraordinary things. For me, that's inspirational.
Nice. I like that. Harj, how about you?
I'm going to have to do it to her again. It's the second time this week, but it's my mum. Mum's the inspiration, mum's the role model, and genuinely is the reason that I do everything that I do, and she's just been my biggest supporter since day one. So yeah, Mumsy, you, because I know you're watching.
Nice. Okay, Shaniece.
Yeah, I'd agree with Harj, definitely. Like, it's my mum. Like, you know, if it wasn't for her supporting me, telling me that it's all going to be okay, it's all going to be worth it in the long run, if it wasn't for her getting to the position she's in today and paving the way for me, I wouldn't be in the position I am. So I'm really grateful for her.
Brilliant. I love the mention of paving the way there, because that is the title of our event and a great way to end the Q&A session. Thank you. Thank you to all three of you, and thank you to all those who shared questions with us. At the bottom there, you'll see the social media tags for these guys. So if you do want to get in contact with any questions or comments about today or about what they're doing, then please do use that. So that brings us to the end of the Q&A session. I'm going to now hand over back to Linda to close for us.
Thank you, Sharina. So the end of the Q&A session brings us to the closing of our Paving the Way event. Thank you to all of you who submitted your questions to our fantastic speakers. It's great to have such an interactive and curious audience. And of course, the biggest thank you to Shaniece, Sara and Harjeet. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today to share your stories and experiences. Most of all, we celebrate you as inspirational women doing your thing and demonstrating why International Women's Day is so important. We really hope those watching live have enjoyed today's event. As we have streamed live this evening on various platforms, it means this session will be saved, so you'll be able to watch it again or share with any family or friends who may have missed it. Thank you again to our wonderful speakers, to the team who have worked to make the event happen, and to City Sikhs for recognising and celebrating International Women's Day 2021. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.